And we are back. Another episode of Trailers to Yachts. This is episode 25. We'll start this one off. Inaugural cheers. Jesus, man.
Cheers,
Come
boys.
on.
Cheers.
It's been a while. This is
3
I
weeks.
think 3 weeks since we've been down here
Yep.
in
Four for me, 5 for me.
the old basement studio. But we got Brad here from Lion's Cub or Lion Cubs?
LionCubs.
Lion Cubs. I always
Close.
misplace the S.
Everyone does.
So tell us about yourself, kind of how you got started, and we'll roll from there.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. 34, from the west side of Cleveland. Grew up there. Did my undergrad at Ohio State. After that, I moved back to Cleveland, was there for 3 years, got my degree in civil engineering, and then I moved back to Columbus in 2017 and to start taking night classes at Ohio State. I was getting my MBA, so my company transferred me to Columbus. I would go to work every day, go to classes 2 or 3 nights a week, and then about halfway through business school is when I started doing the cookie thing, kind of just out of curiosity, and it spiraled out of control. And that's where we got to where we are today. So that's
Out of control or into control?
both. But yeah, I mean, that's a long story short
Right.
of LionCubs, but happy to fill in the gaps wherever I can.
So what year did you get started with it, the business?
So I actually made my first cookie ever in November 2018. So I was about halfway through night classes, and I was just going to my mom's for Thanksgiving, and I love pumpkin stuff. So I love pumpkin pie. It's cool, but you have it every year. I wanted something different. I've been a good cook my whole life. I actually cooked my first meal for myself when I was 5. Learned how to make eggs. My dad taught me how to do some stuff. And then all throughout the rest of my life, I just kind of taught myself how to do things. I was really into, I still am, still really into grilling and barbecuing, smoker in the backyard type thing. So baking was something new for me. I Googled pumpkin desserts before I went to my mom's house, and then all these different options came up, and I saw pumpkin cookies, and I was like, well, that looks pretty good. I'm going to try that. I'm not really into cookies, but that sounds great. So I made those. I took them to my mom's house, and I had, over the course of 2 days, probably a dozen or so cookies, just nonstop. And so I got back from Thanksgiving, and I kept making cookies, and I just kept making cookies, and then, the engineer in me started really teaching myself what the ingredients did. So what I would do is I would take my recipe, and then I'd hold everything constant, and I'd start changing one ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would do the same thing with a different ingredient. I'd hold the other ones constant. I'm like, oh, so that's what baking powder does. That's what cornstarch does. That's what AP flour does.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about 3 months of doing that, I got really good at it. And then the idea kind of popped in my head, because at that time in Columbus, there wasn't anything like what I was doing at my own house. It was a fresh baked, really premium product, these big gigantic cookies. So this is back in 2018, 2019. This is before the cookie boom kind of happened.
Insomniac and all that.
Yeah. So I mean, Insomnia was around, but I'd say Crumble really started that kind of boom. They went viral on, multiple platforms, and, I think they started in like 2017. So, but in 2018, like they were still in Utah. So even in 2019, but I just, at that point, I'm like, there's nothing like this. Like, I can't get a cookie right out of the oven. There's plenty of places in Columbus that there's lots of bakeries around, and most of them operate a very similar way. They get there very early, they bake off everything, and it sits in a case all day, and that's fine. Baked goods allow you to do that. It isn't like a burger, for example. Like, you can't cook all your burgers in the morning and then sell them off throughout the day.
I tried pitching that to them to get all my work done so I could get out early, but
Yeah,
We're working on frozen patties.
No, we're not.
Supermarket.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
R&D.
No,
Still.
we're
Yeah, big step for the brand. Yeah. But anyway, so the idea was fresh baked right out of the oven. That's the way a cookie should be, because that's how I would eat it every single time at my house. And originally the idea, because every single time a cookie would come out of the oven at my house, I would, as soon as I could handle it without it falling apart, I would throw it into a bowl of ice cream and start. I basically was like the fresh baked version of Cold Stone Creamery.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually the initial idea was, I could be the fresh baked version of Cold Stone Creamery, because that's how I do it at my house. And as I started working on that idea, so at that point, it's like March, it becomes officially idea. As I started working through that, I'm like, that's kind of complicated. And there's really just nothing like these cookies at all right now that's simpler I can just focus on that.
Right. And then you have to like make ice cream and
Yeah, it seems simple enough to just, and I had heard enough from people that are like, if you just focus on one thing and do it really, really well, that's better than focusing on multiple things and doing them okay.
absolutely.
So I just focused on cookies, and so May I formed the LLC. I started working on the idea. By September of 2019, I started the Instagram, and I started advertising with no firm plan at that point for how I will sell them. I had an idea and I was working on it, and luckily the idea panned out. I was like, okay, I'll start doing pop-ups, and I'm going to target the North Market. Like, I'm going to do the pop-ups there. So I started talking to them. I built up a good like 1,400 followers or so before we did the first pop-up at the North Market. So I'd built up a good amount of hype, and October, I moved into a commercial space. This is before I even sold a cookie, but I was betting on myself. I'm like, I think this is going to work. I think I need the ability to scale past what I can do in my own home.
Right.
So let me just go into this low cost shared space called the Food Fort. It's about 5 minutes east of downtown. It was cheap. They had everything I needed from an equipment standpoint, and it was conveniently located to the North Market. Like, that was very important to me, because I knew the second that I introduced this product to Columbus, I need it to be fresh, like the way I'm eating it. That's been probably the biggest cornerstone of our brand from the beginning till now, is fresh baked.
Right.
And North Market wouldn't let me bake on site because it's a pop-up, like no surprise there. So I'm like, okay, how can I keep fresh cookies at the market where I sell them? Well, what we would do was we would bake at the North Market, throw them into hot boxes. We'd have basically someone at the North Market, someone at the Food Fort, and a runner who would just run cookies back and forth. We'd bake as much as we could, throw them to a hot box, get to the North Market. That first pop-up was crazy. There was a line, pretty big line. So I was like really surprised by it. I'm like, oh, this is the first time I've ever sold cookies. Did 6 of those, 6 pop-ups before COVID hit. And by the time we did the last pop-up, it was the Arnold. Remember, that was the first thing, I don't know if you guys remember, shut down. But that was the first kind of, oh shit moment.
Oh, yeah.
And they canceled the Arnold, but we had the pop-up scheduled, but like Columbus hadn't shut down yet. So we're like, well, let's just do it. We still think people are going to be in Columbus. So we did the pop-up, and at that point, the line was wrapped around the North Market and out the door for that last pop-up.
Hell yeah.
And that was crazy. So each pop-up, we did more, and we did it quicker. So I think by the time we did the last pop-up, it was like, I don't know, like 700-800 cookies in 3 hours, which was nuts for a pop-up. Just popping up a 6-foot fold-up table and running cookies back and forth as you could. And oh, by the way, I haven't quit my job yet. I'm just doing this in my free time. So in that time period from, let's say early 2019 to late 2019, so December 2019 was first pop-up. March 2020 was the last one. From that time, from February to the end of the year in 2019, I was still in school. So what I would do is I would go to work, 7 to 4, get off, maybe go to the gym if I could, and then I'd start classes at 6, and you'd get out of class at around 9:30, 10 o'clock.
And then go back.
And then I go to the kitchen at that point, because that was the only time I could go.
Well, right, and there's probably not a lot of people trying to get in that space at that time.
No, it was the best time, and I made one of my very best friends at that time, because me and him were the only dudes that would go there at 11 o'clock at night, 12, 1 in the morning.
But we've worked in spaces like that as well, not like the kitchen areas, but the common areas, like
no
the
one's
dish.
there.
But when it's busy, it's you can't do.
Yeah.
You can't.
And there's so many personalities in those spaces, and
gosh.
like you don't really get along with everyone all the time.
Typically,
There's always one person that wants to have like an hour-long conversation.
Yeah.
You're like, bro, I got 10 minutes of this shit. I'm trying to go home.
Yeah. There was that, and there was other things too. By the time we got out, it was definitely time for us to get out. Like, one, we had outgrown the space, which was really cool. But I don't know, we just needed our own space to make our own rules and to do things the way we wanted to do them, not by other people's rules.
Well, right, but you have to learn. You got to learn that you have to get a space, outgrow it, just like you do with your kitchen at home.
Yeah.
I got this space. I have to exploit it to the fullest, and then outgrow it and go to the next space. And
it's the most cost-effective way to do things, for sure.
Well, it's smart. It's not like now I have all this overhead, and I have to make X amount of thousands of dollars just to cover this, and then it's smart.
I tell you what, I miss those low overhead days though. I remember looking at like the P&Ls at that stage, and the margins are crazy, but you start to understand, and then you eventually realize through experiencing it that 40%, 50% net margin isn't going to sustain itself at scale,
right.
but you enjoy them while you have them, right? Because like the rent at the kitchen space is essentially nothing compared to what we were doing. But yeah, it was really fun. Part of me misses those days just because everything was so simple back then.
Yeah, but
responsibilities weren't as
you
high.
wouldn't be able to sustain
No,
on something like that. But if you want to grow and you want to be ambitious, yeah, it's cool. If you want to hobbyist it, then yeah, that's cool. But
yeah,
hobbyisting it isn't doing it for your livelihood.
And that was never the goal. The goal wasn't to, I'm just going to do this and this will be a fun side project. Like the goal was always to turn into something that I could eventually quit my job. And because I've always wanted to do my own thing, I actually started, I don't know when they started. I had my first business when I was probably like 10-ish. It was illegal, but I had a business.
Hell
yeah. It was me and my brother. We would, I'll paint the picture for you.
I was gonna say.
I love telling people about my first business. It's ridiculous. So, all right. So the microphone right here, this is like my dad's apartment complex. These represent the tree lines of the woods. The Smash Buddy sign represents the golf course.
Tequila shots sold by a 10-year-old.
No, better. We would rob from the rich and sell back to the rich. So me and my brother, exactly. So one of us would sit near the tee off at the 10th hole. One of us would be halfway down the range.
Their same ball, they just hit in the woods.
Yeah. So we'd have walkie talkies like, yo, it's going left. So if it started veering towards the tree line, we'd run out, steal the ball, and go back into the woods. And this got really fun because sometimes you get really ballsy with it. There'd be one like in the middle of the fairway. It's like,
how bad do you want this Pro
was
V1
it a dog leg at all, or was it
just straight on?
Saw you run
straight
out?
on. They saw us run out every time.
Did you have like costumes or anything, like a raccoon costume?
Oh, we just got in our camouflage. Like we acted like we were like on a recon,
low crawling out in the
well, no, we would position ourselves to be like hidden in the woods, but then it's just dead sprint out to the fairway, get the ball, go back in, and by the time we would save like hundreds of golf balls, we'd put them in egg cartons. And after we got a bunch of egg cartons full, we'd go back to that same tee off and sit up there and sell golf balls for like 50 cents a pop. So that was the first business. But anyways, I always wanted to do my own thing. So
right.
I think it was inevitable. And cookies were it was born out of passion though. It wasn't like I sat down one day. I'm like, how can I make money? How can I do my own thing? It was because I tried that before, a couple years before I was working on something else, but it wasn't passion driven. So it didn't go anywhere. And this was passion driven. And, it started with a hobby, passion turned into an idea, but passion's always what fueled it.
Yeah, that's how it has to be.
Yeah, for sure.
I like this. All my friends like this. I do this for my friends and family for free. How could I do this and mass produce it and give it to the public and make a living off it?
Do you think Smash Buddies was a passion project for us?
No.
I think to a good degree it had to be.
No, I think the business was the passion.
Yeah, I think it was creating something was the passion.
Doing your own thing.
Yeah, so
but as far as like,
basically like how we got started, we didn't like our day jobs and we were on the phone and we're like, let's start a business.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
What do you want to do?
That's good. Step one. We're going to start a business. What are we going to do?
When was this?
And this was
May.
May 2023.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's like beginning of May. And,
End of April, beginning of May. Probably. No, I was like
so
beginning
2
of
years
May.
ago.
Yeah,
Roughly.
about.
Coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
Of having the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, yeah, we had the idea, had a conversation, and we're like, I think we can do this. We got off the phone call. We did like our own mental math and like, yeah, if we had a food truck, like we could totally make this work. We could sustain our family. Like we both came up with a number, like what do we need to make to be able to support our family, support our 2 kids? And like, it's not that much. And with a food truck, your overhead costs, like you said, when it's not at scale like that, it's just 2 guys. Not that
Your
bad.
time is
your
your
profit
overhead.
is like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
high. And so we're like, I think this can really happen. And then we're like, all right, screw it. Let's do it. And then most of the time was spent convincing our wives, like, hey, we're quitting our 6-figure jobs to start a food truck. I know we just moved you across the country here like 6 months ago.
And we have no background in
but
the
don't
industry.
worry
did
about it.
Did you guys all quit your jobs like before you got started? Or did you kind of get some legs and then be like, all right, we're done?
So from conception to our first event was 1 month. So it was 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
yes,
So we
kind of yes and no. It's within that 4 months we quit
4 weeks.
or 4
Yeah.
weeks. Sorry, 4 weeks. We put in our 2 weeks and quit our
So
jobs. and
you guys went all in like right away.
we jumped right off. The
Okay.
cliff.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of backing up on the phone call because we had the phone call and we're like, let's start a business. But what would we do?
Mm-hmm.
And we like both came from the military. I came from law law enforcement. So there's like the easy thing is like security or some sort of training, whatever. But everyone's doing that. We weren't not really what we wanted to get into. So we had the conversation, and I think it was like a joke. I'm like, let's just start a food truck and sell it, because I'd made these burgers like twice. Like we had like 2 or 3 cookouts in my garage on a Blackstone.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic. I'm like, what if we just go try to sell cheeseburgers? And then he's like, yeah, I've always wanted to start a food truck. And I'm like, boom, we're starting a food truck. And yeah, it was within 4 weeks we started it. And
that's really fast. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Our wives were like, you guys
are nuts.
To be fair, we were a little crazy because we're like, all right, if we just sell like 1,000 cheeseburgers a day,
right? It was like 500 a week. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, we had these like expectations with like no concept of the reality of food trucking.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you guys did it, like started with no background at all, like no culinary background, no business background, essentially, like
yeah,
so we're like all in the same boat there. Like I had no. I mean, I worked as an engineer. I'd baked or I cooked for fun. Like,
see,
that's like this. That's like the best way to learn is to do.
I have a culinary background. I've been a chef for 15 years. I joined them when they
got the restaurant.
So I had a food trailer as well. We parked right next to each other at the Food Lab.
What was
Dublin.
it? Oh, you're at 1400 Food Lab?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's where I met these guys.
Oh, right on.
So mine was called Chow, Chow Italian Eatery. And the same time that they were signing their lease for their brick and mortar, the wheels literally fell off the back of my trailer. Like literally fell off.
Yeah.
And
like,
it was a total loss. And they're like, hey,
perfect time.
You're not doing anything. You need a job. Let's go have a couple beers and see if we could, get you on our team. But they said they were scouting me for months, and
we were
unofficially
sawing his axle.
Sawing my wheels off my axle. And
well, because like we said, Cole and I don't have any industry experience, and so when we started the food truck, it was always with the intention of going to a restaurant. And we knew, like, jumping into a restaurant, we don't have the kitchen experience or like running a staff in the kitchen. We can figure it out, but like he's been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like if we could get somebody like that, where
shortens that learning curve, saves you a ton of time and money.
Like that, yeah. And so when we got the space, it only took us a month from getting the keys to actually opening the restaurant as well. So
these guys
we're nuts.
I might have to call you guys for my next one.
Yeah,
they're absolutely insane. They're absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah, we go balls to the wall on pretty much everything we do. But
had you guys hired a general contractor? Or
yes, all of that.
Oh yeah, we did everything by the books. It was all up to code. And
no,
everything.
so I have a construction background, and like we as soon as we saw the space and we saw that we were like actually looking at getting a lease for this spot, we went in there and measured everything, and I built like the blueprints and kind of had the design ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And Cole started working on like everything we would need on the back end to start a restaurant, as far as like the POS system, employees, and all that. And while I worked on like the actual build out. And so as soon as we got the lease, we literally bought the booths for our restaurant like a week and a half before we even had a lease.
Yeah.
Because I found them on Facebook Marketplace for like
too good of a deal, huh?
Yeah. And I'm like, these would be perfect. I measured everything out and I put them in my
Was it a
blueprint.
second gen space? I'm assuming if you turned it over in 1 month.
But there was
this
gutted
has
the
been
whole
like
thing.
5 different restaurants. Like it's a building from like the 1890s, and it's been a restaurant space for the last like 20, 30 years.
But it was not. There was nothing.
It was a
in
clean
there.
slate when we went in there.
Yeah, so it was mostly turnkey. We really didn't have to do much. Clean it up, paint it, and install our like
didn't have to do
front
like
of house.
electrical, plumbing, HVAC.
No,
that's the
that was
worst.
And all
That's
the kitchen. The
worst.
kitchen was basically turnkey
That's
at that
cool.
point.
So
like
it
they
was
had a
just new
fire.
equipment, essentially.
Yeah, they had a fire, which they got all the insurance and everything.
Yeah.
Redid it to where it's supposed to be at code, and then
Mm-hmm.
we were able to move in after that.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned since I've done 2 spaces now. My first one in Grandview was second gen. Granted, it wasn't a food space before, but so we did that, and then Worthington, the new one, which has been open for a little over a year. That was cold dark shell, and gravel floors. My next one's definitely, if I can, going to be second gen. It's just it was so expensive to do new space. It's got its perks. Don't get me wrong, but all in all,
you
having all the bones there and not having to fuck with too much plumbing and electrical and HVAC, because that's where all the money is. Like that's where you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's what we were originally looking at when we were starting our first place. There was like the development, True Point Development in Hilliard.
Oh yeah,
like we really wanted something in there, but it's cold shell. It's like we'd have to do everything, and just doing the math, we're predicting like $250,000, but it's probably gonna be like double that, $500,000 for our first space. I don't really want to raise that amount of money.
Yeah, and that's all. That's
and
basically,
it would just
that's basically what
be,
ours cost. It was about $500,000 for number 2.
And then like from opening, like it's going to be balls to the walls as soon as they open, because like all the hype is going into it, and so it's like I'd rather kind of start a little bit slower, a little bit more obscure, and build up to that.
We were a little aggressive in thinking that we could take that on.
Yeah.
And there was like a couple months where we're like, oh yeah, true.
We could do it.
This is the play here.
Yeah.
And then we're like penciling it out, and we're like,
oh shit,
we will sink ourselves if we try to do this.
We're nuts. Maybe not this nuts.
Yeah. But yeah, so the place we got, the landlord actually just reached out to us on Instagram.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, cool. I got a spot in the brewery. He had our food truck before, and he wanted to do some sort of 80s vibe. So he's like, you guys kind of fit the mold. Come check it out. And initially, we're like, this is a total waste of time. Like, we are not ready for a restaurant. But all those buildings down there are all like 1800s. They're all built like historic buildings.
Yeah, so, same thing for my first space. I think it's like
you walk in there,
something.
it's just incredible. And we looked at it, and we're like, we could actually do this. Yep. And I think we opened the restaurant for pretty close, like going up to day one of opening the restaurant. We were pretty close to the cost of opening or starting the food truck.
Damn, that's pretty
50,
efficient.
About $50,000.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why.
Did it have a lot of equipment still already in there?
Yeah, so we
like old stuff, but
yeah.
Still
so
usable?
The landlord was still operating. Like that's what happened. Like he was operating out of there. They had a fire, and then then he was like, I don't really want to do this. So he's like looking for tenants, and he wanted to just do pop-ups out of there, but we convinced him to give us the whole space. But he had a lot of like stuff. Like we brought most of the things, but
Griddles,
he still
fries,
had.
But there's still like refrigeration in there that we're using.
Yeah.
Which is nice that he's
for sure.
allowing us.
So we probably saved like $10,000 on using his equipment and stuff.
Probably more than that.
Well, yeah, if you consider the hood and all that stuff, it's a lot more.
But the kitchen is massive.
Yeah.
Compared to like we started in a food truck, which was like 10 by 18 or 8 by
just
18
working
or something.
Truly shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, it's just the two of us, and we could maneuver in there, but even bringing on a third guy, it starts getting tight. And because it was just a trailer, we would tow behind my truck, but then we move into this kitchen that's just massive.
Yeah,
and we're like, we only need about 5 feet in this corner under the hood, and we'll be good for a while.
But grow into it. That's what, like I said, grow into that space.
Yeah.
Exploit that whole space, and now look at us now. We're like, okay, we have a little room in the kitchen, but there's not much storage left.
Yeah, we're doubling most of our equipment in there, so we're about to transition to 2 griddles, 2 lines, more fryers.
Good feeling,
and it worked out perfect. Starting small and waiting for the business to get to the point, because down there, I don't know if you've been in that area at all recently.
Yeah, I was actually just down there like a month ago for a fundraiser.
And Front Street is all closed down.
Yeah.
That's right where we're at.
Yeah, heading north, it's closed. You can't go into downtown, right?
Yeah. So we're in the middle of the construction.
That's annoying.
People try to find us, and it's just a road closed before our restaurant. But
it's not terrible. I mean, it's not ideal for anyone that's starting a new business, but it's not terrible for what we're doing and ramping up. And we're actually ramping pretty well. So when that gets ready, we will be ready.
Yeah.
And that's like, I always tell all of our guests, like, we have to be ready for the boom. And if you're trying to get your systems down while the boom is happening, you're fucked.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were doing when we started. Like when we first opened Grandview, I had no idea what we were doing. I never opened a restaurant, but it was balls to the wall, day one. Like
how was that?
It was crazy.
I can't imagine opening right now, doing the business we're doing right now, and being able to like. I mean, we would eventually manage, but I know, at least for us, our quality and certain things would slip at least a little bit initially, and then
luckily quality never really suffered that bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, like everyone has, like we certainly had challenges, but it wasn't like the main thing. The main thing was just efficiency, like building systems that are scalable and that like other people can operate when you're not there, because I was always like scale oriented. I always knew that I want to open up more of these
with you not being in every place at every time.
Immediately, like the first 2 years, our goal was simple. It was scalable operations, which means a million different things. And so that was what we were focusing on, but we had to learn on the fly. Granted, when we first opened, we were only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we had, really, really good decision to do that, at least early on. So for like the first several months, it was just 3 days a week. But then every Monday through Thursday, we were in there moving stuff around, implementing new systems.
Right. Fine tuning everything.
It was beyond fine tuning. It was major tuning things.
Retrain.
Yeah, it was. I mean, new pieces of equipment, moving refrigerators, everything was moving. It's like if you looked at the space when we first started to what it is now, it is dramatically different.
That's good though, because you're not like, oh, this isn't working, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that when they get something to bite off more than they can chew, and they're not willing or they don't have the help that they need.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I would say we almost bit off more than we can chew. I would say luckily I was obsessed. I had really good people surrounding me. I had enough people that were obsessed that were helping me too.
Right.
My GM was really, really good. I had a couple people internally that were really, really good that were there with me on those days we were closed, helping me figure stuff out, getting to a point where, okay, now we can open up Thursday. Okay, we can open up Wednesday.
Yeah.
I think it took us like a year, it took us more than a year to open up on Tuesday, which is where we are now, Tuesday to Sunday. But yeah, it was fucking crazy those first couple months. And really, like every restaurant kind of has that halo period where like sales are just exorbitantly high. For us in Grandview, it lasted probably a year and a half before it finally like settled out into
a steady
routine. But it was like unpredictable for a while there, which is, don't get me wrong, like that's a really good problem to have.
Absolutely.
Our halo period was 2 weeks, and then we hit into Labor Day, and then it just it dropped off a cliff.
Yeah, that's such a tough part. Like, I'm still learning how to not look at sales every day.
I'm looking at it
every hour.
every minute.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do that, and then like the highs are high, and the lows are low.
But it's good to do that because you're conscious
learn your
of
patterns.
But you're conscious
learn your
of
patterns too.
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, it's so easy to ride the highs, but then when them lows hit, you're like, what the fuck are we doing?
We're going out of business.
What are we doing?
You're fired.
Yeah. We've had a few of them guys that we had to fire right on the spot because we had a bad hour.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah, that's the worst part about like. The best part and the worst part, and let me know if you guys agree or not, like the best and the worst part about owning a business is like the people are the most rewarding part, but when you have people problems, it's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, either like your team's unhappy for whatever reason, or someone's not doing the right thing and they're causing other people to be unhappy. Like those things are really challenging to deal with and they suck, but there's nothing better than seeing someone succeed and having that conversation with someone where you offer them a raise and offer them a promotion. Like that's the coolest part. Like that's always been my why from the very beginning. Once I started hiring people, I really, really cared about my team. And the reason for growth isn't to make money. The reason for growth isn't ego. The reason for growth isn't empire building. The reason for growth is that when you grow, you can provide other people opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so like I have a really good example. So Emily, who's our marketing manager, has been with me for 2.5 years now, maybe 3. I don't know. She was a teacher before she started working with us. And she was like 30 years old or so. And she decided this isn't for me. I don't know what I want to do next, but I want to do something different. And she saw what we were doing on Instagram. She's like, this looks cool. She emailed me and she applied. And at that time I was still interviewing people. I was like, you're like way overqualified for what you're applying for, right? She was applying for just straight up team member position. She's like, yes, I know, but I'm going to come in. I'm going to prove myself. I like what you're doing. I love the brand. I'm going to prove myself. I'm like, okay. Within a month and a half, she gets promoted her first time. A couple months later, she gets promoted again. About a year later, she gets promoted again. And now, so that's like, she's been with me for 3 years, been promoted 3 or 4 times, has seen her pay increase significantly to the point where now her and her partner, like she's pregnant and she's about to give birth any week now. And those raises and those promotions allow her to do that. And like, that's a really cool fucking feeling. I remember, like, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's her story, but I remember when she came in, it's like, I'm pregnant. And we just like, I gave her, like, she gave me a huge hug. Like, damn, like, this is cool. Like, and I was so genuinely happy for her.
Yes.
But then like after the fact, I realized, damn, like
You're gonna be
what we're building here has allowed this to happen for her. Like, it has allowed her the financial freedom to take her life, not her career. Like, her career is growing, but it's taking her life and it's growing that too.
Yeah.
That's the most rewarding feeling ever. So every time we open a new store, I'm like, okay, who gets the opportunity here, and who do I get to have this conversation with? And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun for me.
Oh yes.
Before you opened your second location, did you like kind of mass hire in your first spot to train people up to fill that, or how you walk through that process?
Yeah. So location number 1, we already had I think we had 11 people working with LionCubs at that point. Granted, they were all delivery drivers because when we were working out of the food fort, we did a delivery only concept. And so we took all of our existing staff and we probably added 5 or 6 people, which was very manageable. Granted, I had no idea how to train for a brick and mortar. Like the opening training for store number 1 was a joke. And to be quite honest, the training for store number 2 was a joke too. We thought we had a plan. We had a very well thought out plan, but you know what they say, you get punched in the face and like, you got to come up with a new plan. Like, that's basically what happened. Like, after we opened, we're like, well, that didn't work. Granted, we had the main stuff ironed out, but store number 1, we had most of the staff there. Anyone who took on a position of responsibility at store number 1 had already been with me for 9 to 12 months
or whatnot. And
yeah.
at least had an
Store
idea.
number 2, everyone was new. Granted, I took my GM from store number 1, moved him to store number 2. That was great. And there's probably 2 or 3 other people who also transferred from store number 1 to store number 2. And that was really, really helpful for 2 reasons. One, just operationally, like they could pick out mistakes and correct people and show them how to do things the LionCubs way. But also the culture was transferred over as well. So yeah, mass training, we probably hired 25, 30 people all within a couple weeks for number 2. And that was like quite the lift. In training 25 to 30 people at once for the first time. Now that we've done it once, we're going to do it very differently for number 3 when that eventually happens. But yeah, that's how we did it. And
so when we opened, like Cole was saying, our first 2 weeks, we were busy with all the hype, and then it dropped off at like Labor Day, and like the next month, September last year, it wasn't dead, but it was significantly slower than we were expecting. And so with our guys there, we played a lot of Golden Tee in the lobby, but we had all these good intentions of like, this, we're going to train
people. Yeah, best time to train.
When you don't have orders or anything coming through, it's like you can talk about things at a certain point. You need orders and you need the board full so people can like work through what you're training them and kind of get the hands-on experience. And so it's like, that's still something that's evolving as we're growing and growing, because it's like our hours, like our good hours 6 months ago are a lot different than our good hours now.
Yeah, same for us, and especially our new location. It's changed.
And as that grows, it's like until you see a busy hour now, which we weren't seeing back 4 or 5 months ago. When you see those hours now with more employees, you start seeing the weak links in the system, and then it's like, all right, so now that we're getting to a new point in the business and we're growing, we have more people in here. Now you can see where your training is failing or where you need to retrain. Correct certain things to get, maximize the efficiency. But I think it's a never-ending process.
For sure. I mean, we're still working on training right now. We're implementing right now. We're actually implementing it in 2 weeks for the very first time is ongoing training. So we've always had new hire training, and then we have training on skills. So when you come in, you get hired as a team member, but we will give you 4 opportunities to learn new things, to learn new skills, and we attach a raise to each one of those. So like we incent you to be, the best team member possible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But beyond that, so you come in as a team member, you learn how to kit, mix, decorate, bake, and a couple more positions beyond that. But after we train you, at that point it stopped. And then as time has gone on, we've realized that's not good enough. We need to, every 3 to 6 months, retrain everyone on everything they've already learned. That's a big part of quality control too.
Oh, right.
It started from how can we be the best version of quality control that we can be. Well, it starts with the team. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. And one thing we did early on that was really good, and I luckily had people around me telling me, helping me make decisions and giving me advice based on their own mistakes and their own triumphs, was someone told me, start documenting anything and everything as it relates to core processes and SOPs and just write them down. And then once you have all that stuff, turn it into a training manual, which is essentially what we did. We documented everything. I mean, little things, how to do the dishes, there's so many little SOPs. And then we're like, okay, let's pick and choose the most important ones and put it into a training manual. And then that's how we train people.
Well, that's what I think we're learning right now is like, you can't expect anyone to know anything.
No, you've got to.
Because you need it to be your way. Because they could have done it somewhere
exactly.
else and it's completely different. And they were able to fly with doing it this way. But now we're learning the Smash Buddies way is what we know. But sometimes you're too busy to teach every single person, oh, this is the way you need to spray every tray with degreaser because it's greasy. And it's just small, like fine-tuning things.
And even like amongst you three, you all three probably are very knowledgeable about how to do things in your business, but you might each have a little bit of a different way to describe things where and once you start adding on like more team members and more restaurants, like, okay, how do we make sure that the most important things to us are being told to our team essentially the exact same way, the way we want them to hear it.
We had the same conversation earlier. Like, I've worked in a lot of places that are like, someone that I have training, another employee, they would say, well, Adam does it this way, but I do it this way. No, it needs to be done this way. And this is the only way it needs to be done. You can't you may be able to get the same result, but I'll get the same result every time.
Yeah.
You can't circumvent the problem and now you're there, but you're not going to get there every time.
And even that's a challenge too, because you don't want to be, everything needs to be this way. Like one thing I've definitely learned is pick your battles. Like what things will I be like, no, it has to be this way.
Right.
And what things will I be like, I'm okay with them doing that their own way to some degree.
As long as the result is.
Yeah, because like I'm not going to tell you to we need people to wash dishes with their left hand, right? Like that's like too much.
Right.
But there's certain things, if it relates to anything that's about our core values, like it needs to be done this way. So, and that's the only thing that we'll really hold people accountable to is the important things need to be done our way. The non-important things, sure, we do have our way, but we're okay if you do things a little bit differently.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's not going to really affect quality.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of how we pick our battles. Like, will it affect the team? Will it affect culture? Or will it affect quality? If the answer is no, then we're fine with you kind of doing things your own way to some degree. Because like autonomy is important, right? No one wants to go to work and be a total robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Industry's going in a weird
crossed,
way.
Baby. Fingers
Well,
crossed.
dude, they got the flippy, right?
Yeah.
The burger flipping robot.
Yeah, I've seen videos of like flipping burgers and like doing like tot stations. It's still a long
I want to see when
ways away.
Flippy goes bad and he's just flipping burgers through the ceiling.
Slitting
Have you guys been to
people's
that?
throats.
I haven't been there yet. My mom, my brother just went. That sushi restaurant, Kura, up in Polaris, I think. They have robots. So it's like one of those conveyor belt sushi spots. But then they have robots running you out.
Oh, I've been to a
Drinks
place
and
up in Dublin that has
I haven't been to any of
robot
those
server.
He's a robot.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. They have a little robot that serves
Yeah.
your food.
That's
too.
wild.
It's like, here's your order.
That'd be such a that'd
Pretty
be
cool.
such a leap, like from a brand perspective. Like for us, like we're very community oriented. Then
So
all of a
what I'm
sudden we have
saying,
robots doing everything. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't it doesn't match.
Well, we don't have servers, but one of these guys is typically out in the front every day.
Yeah.
But all of our kitchen
Who's the front
staff-
guy?
Both of us.
Yeah.
All right.
We'd always switch on the food truck, so we've both gotten
Likes it
accustomed to
more.
doing both.
But like when we run out our orders, like,
We honestly kind of go 50-50.
Yeah.
I know when I need to go back in the kitchen when I'm like, I kind of want to punch this customer in the face.
No,
I get that. I start
DoorDash
getting
driver.
those
It's the DoorDash
intrusive thoughts, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I think I've had enough. So it's usually about a week, and then I'm like, all right, I'm about to go smash some burgers, get some of the rage out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you go in the kitchen for a while, and you're like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm all covered in grease.
Yeah, that's with us. Luckily, we don't come out of there like covered in grease and stuff. It's we got flour and we smell like cookies and stuff. Like, it's not the worst.
oh,
in
that
the world.
sounds terrible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, you spend a good couple hours on the griddle, just smashing all the grease and steams. Just right.
You really got to wash your face after. Yeah,
It was definitely worse in the food truck.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
'Cause it was,
I'm guessing the ventilation ain't the greatest in there.
Yeah, we had a hood vent.
Well, actually, the ventilation of the food truck is probably better than what we were.
Like, it's got open windows.
problem
Not
is-
really. I mean, because the wind coming in.
Yeah.
through
Yeah,
it,
so we
it's
had
just-
a hood vent, but it wouldn't all suck out because the wind blowing in, it would just blow the steam and grease everywhere.
Yeah.
So everything was just covered in grease.
So what did you guys end up doing with the food truck?
Sold it.
Like, did you even try to keep it active after you opened, or said, let's just focus on the retail?
Yeah.
And
What do we have?
Pretty much. And then we weren't really trying to sell it, but someone wanted to buy it. They like reached out like, what are you guys doing with that truck? And we're like, well, it's kind of just sitting there in the meantime. Because this was like month 2. So like focus on this for now. And then they're like, well, we'll give you this amount. And I was like, what we were going to ask for. So we're like, sure. Yeah.
So yeah. Because we weren't sure if we stored it at the food lab, if we kept it active, licensed, insured, and ready to operate, which we would want to. If you're going to have it, you might as well be ready to use it.
Yeah.
In case there's a good event that pops up. But it would have cost us about $1,000 a month.
Screw that.
Parking it and keeping it after. And then you're like, well, we'd have to do at least a few events a month. And we
justify its existence.
Yeah.
And so it just takes up headspace.
And it's 15 minutes away from our restaurant. So it's not like we could do all our prep and dishes at the restaurant. It's like, no, it's a completely separate entity with new employees who have to be trained up on all the standards. And like, we just didn't have the manpower. And it was just like,
But also
it's
with it-
easier to sell it now and then go forward. And like, if we want to buy another one, we can.
Yeah. If you wait till spring, you turn that guy down, wait till spring. You're like, now we'll sell it. You just wasted $6,000 and now nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're spending $1,000 a month with a food truck that, you don't want and you can't find a buyer for. So somebody wanted it. We're like,
it's all yours.
And they haven't opened it yet.
Well,
Just crazy.
Who bought it? Or are you guys allowed to say?
no, some guy is starting a burger truck.
Oh, what the hell?
I mean, it's all set up. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the winter months are rough in a food truck.
yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw those guys when we were at the food fort. It just wasn't a whole lot going on with the food truck guys from
We did-
November to March.
We did it one winter and we're like, nope, let's open a restaurant.
Which, ironically, our winter months, like January, February, in the food truck were some of our best. But it's only because we got some catering gigs at Google, like the
we had a
data
Google
centers out
contract.
here. So we were selling burgers and tots for like $20, and we were doing like 50 to 60 meals, like 2 or 3 times a week.
That's legit.
So it was like, yeah, it was great, but it was like sub 10 degree temperatures, and you're just freezing the entire time.
Yeah.
Actually, trying to do an event when like you got wind, and it's miserable.
Is the wind getting in the food truck like mess with like the cooking and how you?
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
Our
10
griddle-
degree wind does not melt cheese.
Yeah.
And if it's
Also-
120 degrees, the cheese is melted as soon as you pull it out of
Does
the
that
fridge.
mess with the fryers too? Like,
The fryers
The fryer
weren't
not
too
too
bad, but ours were a little bit out of the window, so they were a little bit more in their own.
Yeah, our griddle
compartment.
was right behind the window.
yeah.
So the wind would just go straight in across the griddle and up the hood.
Cool down your griddle. That you're constantly. And then if you're not busy, then your griddle's getting too hot, and then you're burning patties, and you're just
Now, when we were doing the Google contract, they sent us an email and they're like, "Hey, you guys do breakfast? We've sent of our menu. It's burgers and tots." And we're like,
We can throw an
Yeah.
egg on a burger.
Yeah.
What do you want?
and they're like, "Yeah, we don't care. They want breakfast too at like 7:30 p.m." So, and we're like, "Cool,
pretty
we'll do
cool.
breakfast burritos." So for the whole month of January, I think we did it like 8 times. We just made like 50 massive breakfast burritos in our food
Hell
truck,
yeah.
and then shipped them all down there, and $20 a pop.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
They were good.
It was sweet.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Google's
want to
really good.
rewind a little bit, like LionCubs.
Yeah.
Like, what's the idea? Like the brand and like all of the conceptualization behind
Yeah.
it. Like,
So
how'd you come up with it?
Okay, great question. So once I figured out what the product was, at that point, it's like, okay, what do I call it? And what does the brand mean? What does it represent to people? So starting with the name, well, the name actually it came from who I thought I'd be selling cookies to. So luckily, I was introduced to enough people when I was in that early stage of conceptualization that were selling similar products, selling donuts, selling chocolatiers, selling sweets. So talk to them. I'm trying to learn, like, what's the customer like? And one of the things they told me was it's going to be primarily female, dramatically female. So, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like cookies, like when you think about burgers, for example, like that is at the end of the day, like comfort food to some degree on average for men. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say, you guys, most of your customers are dudes.
You should have seen the Arnold week.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah. So
We have a demographic, if you might.
yeah, so almost 80% of our customers are women. And so I made that assumption going in. I'm like, okay, that's what people are telling me. That makes sense. Okay, store that away. Now I'm trying to think of a name, and I was really struggling for a while, and my mentor told me, and he goes, just start thinking about stuff from your childhood and just start writing it down, and eventually something will click. And I remember me and my brother were in a long drive to Tennessee, and we were in the car, and I was just on my phone just typing anything and everything from my childhood. And so then I wrote down LionCub. I show my brother my phone. He goes, because at that point he understands who the customer is too. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I think this is it. For a couple of reasons. One, it means something to me. So the name it's a childhood nickname for my dad. So I had crazy hair, I've really can't really tell right now because it's short, but I had basically an afro. And so I had crazy hair like a lion's mane, and then I just had unstoppable energy, would get in a lot of trouble, both at home and not at home.
Let's dive into that. No, I'm just...
Dude, I can go
all
all
your
day.
childhood trauma.
I mentioned I went to Ohio State. I got kicked out of my dorm after halfway through the second quarter.
Hell
so,
yeah.
I got in a lot of trouble. But anyways, I eventually grew up by the time I was 26 or 27. But anyway, so it meant something to me. And then as I started to think about my target, my average customer, I'm like, okay, LionCubs. When I tell the story, they'll be like, oh, that's cute, childhood nickname, and it means something. And then LionCubs, the mother of a lion, motherly instinct. Okay, that's cool too, female audience. And then another piece was you don't know what to think when you hear LionCubs. What does LionCubs have to do with a cookie? It has nothing to do with the cookie. But the parallel I like to draw is apple. So when I say the word apple, do you think of the food, or do you think of your phone, or do you think of a computer? Most people think of a computer.
I thought of food.
My kids love apples too. So
all right, well, he's a chef.
But
anyways, so where I'm going with this is, Apple has a really, really strong brand now, and I think part of that is because when you say Apple and computers, when you don't really know what to think. So as a brand builder, you essentially have a blank canvas. I like to think of
your brand
from scratch.
Yes,
when I like to think of a brand builder as an artist, and an artist wants a blank canvas. So if I say LionCubs as it relates to cookies, it means nothing. You don't really know what to think.
You're going to rebrand that to think of cookies.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So when I was first thinking of the name, at the start, it was me and my brother. So I had the idea, and I was I talked to my brother. I'm like, hey, it'd be really cool if we worked on something together. Pretty quickly it became obvious I was the only one into it, so I just took it forward. But at that point, I was thinking, well, maybe I could do dough bros or dough boys. I'm like, wait a minute, I think of Pillsbury, so I think of something. My canvas is no longer blank.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But if I have LionCubs, no one knows what to think, so I get to now be the artist and paint the picture of what the LionCubs brand is. So as I was thinking of the brand and what it meant, community was always very important to me. So LionCubs has always been very community oriented. Last year alone, we donated almost $60,000 of monetary donations and product donations. We're only a couple $1,000s away from actually having our name on the wall nationwide, which is crazy. We've done a ton of work with them. So we're really, really community oriented, very family friendly, very engaging with our customers. We've always listened to what they say. And, a lot of people say that, but we really involve our customers in decision making that we do, and we let them be a part of our growth. So one of the things that's really cool that we've done when we've grown is when we opened up Grandview, we did an Indiegogo campaign. You familiar with that?
No.
So Indiegogo is a Kickstarter. So you can sell product or sell experiences, and we did it at a discount. It's kind of like a get it now while we have it, help us raise money to open our store. It's not a GoFundMe. We're not just saying, hey, give us money to do this. It was, we will give you something in return for your money, and we'll make it a great deal or a great experience that's only available now. We did that. We raised $60,000 with Indiegogo, and they told us our goal should be to raise 50% of the money within 48 hours. We raised 100% of the money in 30 hours.
Let's go.
So, but that involves our customers. Hey, we want you to be a part of our growth.
Right.
Same thing with store number 2. But store number 2, we did crowdfunded debt. So instead of going to the bank for money, we used a platform called Honeycomb. And we said, hey, customers, we want you to lend us money. And in return for your money, we'll give you, 8 or a 9% return. We did 2 different rounds. That platform's called Honeycomb, and we raised $100,000. And going into the campaign, Honeycomb's talking to us. They're like, here's all the things you need to do to market your campaign, to raise money, and here's things we recommend. I remember I was on the call, and like Emily and Megan, 2 people that have been with me for a long time, were behind me. I like muted myself. I turned around. I'm like, we're gonna fucking cry. Like we know what we're doing. They told us, yeah. I was like, what's your record? They're like 28 hours. I'm like, we're gonna fucking crush that. Turns out we raised $100,000 in 15 minutes. So we broke their record of 28 hours and did it in 15 minutes. But that was another example of us being community oriented and getting our customers involved and saying, hey, we want you to help. We want you to fund our growth. We don't want to pay some big bank 8 or 9% interest right now. And to be clear, we could have got better interest from the bank. It was marginally better. So at that point, it's like, well, if it's only a little bit cheaper to go to the bank, why don't we just pay our customers? Right. Create loyal customers out of it. Yep. Give them the opportunity to truly be a part of our growth, not just feel like they're a part of our growth, but be a part of our growth. So now every month, people that invested in that get it essentially a deposit in their bank from LionCubs.
But now they could talk about it too and spread your brand as well.
Yeah, and like we crashed Honeycomb's website, this big national company, because so many people. I remember the CEO called me from Honeycomb. He's like, "What did you guys do? You guys need to tell me what you did."
I ain't telling you nothing.
Well, I told him, I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "We did X, Y, and
exactly
Z."
What you said.
Well, I told him, I was like, we have a really engaged customer base. We engage with them. They've been a part of this journey the whole time because that's who we are as a brand. We're very community oriented. We engage with our customers. We let them decide on things that we do. We do taste tests all the time. Even still to this day, we do unofficial taste tests and we do actual official taste tests where we have a version of a product we don't really know. We invite a bunch of customers in. And we say, tell us which one you want. And they decide. But that's a big part of the brand. So, community, engaging with our customers, friendly, bright. That's who we are.
What kind of things did you offer with the first one when you said like experiences or?
Yeah. So we sold cookies at a discount. We sold apparel. We sold some special apparel that was one time only. It got you a lifetime discount. But what we made the most money on was selling an experience. And this cost me a lot of time. We sold, I think like $30,000 worth of what we called cookie dough date nights. And so what people would do is they would buy essentially 2 to 3 hours worth of time with me for them and a +1 or them and their family to come into LionCubs after we opened. And I would make cookies with them from scratch. I'd say, hey, you guys have carte blanche. Anything on this wall, we can make it. Just tell me what kind of cookie you want to make.
Awesome.
We're going to make it together. And we're going to bake them, and the cookies are yours. And I'm going to talk you through the whole process, kind of teach you how we do things. So we sold a ton of those. I think we sold like 50 or 60 of those. And that took me a long time to go through that list. That took me 3 or 4 months to go through that list.
Yeah, but that's
cool. But
it's exclusive.
It was. And it don't get me wrong. Like it was taxing. I remember there'd be nights where I'd do back-to-back date nights. So I'd be 5 hours straight of just being on and talking and engaging, and I would just sit
like, put the flour in the bowl.
No, I always no. That I was always on with them, and didn't have to try like that. I really enjoy doing that stuff because one thing I've learned as I've grown the business, like especially as like the founder, person who runs a company, is when you deal with customers, like you can do surveys, you can do whatever. At the end of the day, the most you're ever going to learn about your brand is by talking to customers. So we made a really big decision to start this year. We had teed up the idea based on data and interviews and all that. But I said, let me talk to customers first. I spent 2 days in each of our stores just sitting there asking customers questions. And we made the decision. And so far, it's been a great decision because I think I learned so much from talking to customers. So when I was doing those date nights, I'm learning a ton by talking to these customers. And they're really getting to know what we're actually all about, more than what we just put on social media. But so as taxing as those were at times, and I'll just sit in the basement when I'm done and just like my head would hurt. I learned a ton. I think I gave those people really good experiences that they're probably still talking about. Like, hey, I made cookies with the founder and they were great and that was fun and it was informative. But
you made them feel special.
And they are special. Like, dude, they helped me open this freaking store. When we were just some small ass company working out of a food fort and started with a 6-foot fold-up table at the North Market under the stairs where they put all the trash cans. Like they're responsible.
LionCubs are here. We got to move these trash cans.
No, dude, they're still there. It's at the stairwell that goes up to Hot Chicken Takeover. They put a table right like underneath those stairs, and that's where we were. but it was the coolest thing ever.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. It felt really official, but I remember I was nervous as fuck going into that first pop-up. Like, is anyone going to show up? Are the cookies going to be good? And I remember I was in the car with my brother we were driving back to the food fort, and I was like, because I just sold 300 cookies in 3 hours, and I thought I was Superman, right? Like, looking back on it, it's not like a crazy amount, but it's still like a good amount. And I remember I was looking at him, I was like, dude, I think this is really going to be something. Like, what happened on day one here isn't a fluke.
Right.
And then the next time we did a pop-up, it was more. And then the third one was more. And every single one just got bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where the merchants at the North Market were like pumped up when they would see us walk in. We went from nobody, just another pop-up, to hell yeah, the cookie dudes are here. That means we're all going to make more money, because they just brought in 200 more customers and weren't going to come here.
Would you guys ramp up when you notice the growth? Would you ramp up your numbers?
Oh, we tried as much as we could.
And then it's like, oh, how long is it going to be till we sell out today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would make as much as we could. There was no artificial selling out when we were at the North Market. We were making as much as we could.
Right.
And we sold it, and then we'd make more. We'd hire someone else, make more. And it just kept going and kept going.
Yeah, that's like you're not settling.
No, we want to do as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to push things to the limits.
For sure.
You know, like I said in the beginning when we started the food truck, you know, we had our eyes set were like 500 burgers a week or whatever it was, and then you start it, and then even it was kind of the same with the restaurant. Our first 2 weeks were great. We're like, all right, this is going to be reality from here on out, and then it crashes. And you're like, all right, now we got to figure out how to get back there. And then once you start going past those numbers, you know, and then you're just like, let's keep pushing the snowball down the hill and see how far it'll go.
Yeah.
How big it'll get.
Yeah. I mean, growing sales is a very interesting goal to take on, for sure. There's so many different ways to go about it. And, you know, we've all dealt with it, you know, especially like when you have that initial super high, then you come back down to earth. You're like, all right, how do we get going back in the right direction again? And, but once you do, it feels really good, for sure.
Yeah. I always say it's like our goal has always been to grow our pond of return customers. Because like
retention is a new acquisition, they say.
Yeah. I mean,
they've been saying that for a while.
First time customers are great, but if they're not coming back, you know, you're eventually going to run out of first timers. So we have a ton of people come in, and then we'll see them later, like their first time. We'll see them 2-3 days later,
the best
and
feeling.
they got their whole family.
Yeah,
and they're like, "I told you I'd be back, bro."
It's the best. And then they bring their friends. Like the people that they come in, they're like, "Oh, I brought my cousin, or I brought my friends. I told them it was, you know, the best cookies or the best burger I ever had." You're like, "God damn it, I want to give you a big ass hug right now. Like you are the best customer."
Yeah, and they when you remember them too.
Oh yeah, you start knowing them by name. There's people that still come in that I remember would come in the early days. Like there's people that still buy from us that were at the pop-ups. Like when people come in wearing that shirt I was telling you that we sold in the Indiegogo campaign, it gets you a lifetime discount. When I see those 198 people that bought that shirt, I know exactly the number still. I'm like, you are a true OG.
Thank you.
Like you've been here since the very beginning, and I would gladly give you that lifetime discount every time you come in, no matter what store you go to.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you want to wrap this thing up?
I think so.
About time.
What time is it?
9:20.
59 minutes and 4 seconds.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys before we wrap it up?
To be determined.
Our first summer.
Yeah, to be determined.
We have big plans, but it's still
Yeah.
we're keeping it under wraps for now.
What's like your main goals right now, I should say.
Main goals?
Yeah.
So like you were saying earlier, the first 2 years where it was building out your SOPs and making it something that you can reproduce, that's the phase we're in now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
that's kind of our 2-year
we're
goal.
we're redoing our entire kitchen. So it's gonna look
sounds exactly
different.
like what we did. We redid our kitchen, and
once we do
SOPs.
that, this is kind of like a fresh start for us. It's like this is now how everything is done. Like we've got 8 months. We know exactly what we want, and now it's on paper, and we expect these certain things to be.
We're going corporate, boys.
Yeah.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's so much corporate as it is just clear expectations, because we still have like people who are like, yeah, this is how Adam does it, and this is how Cole does it, but this is how Jared does it. It's like we all do things very similarly. We're all very proficient and effective, but we do it very differently. And now it's
we're
going
also
to be
in the
much
learning.
more.
We're also in the learning phase too, because it's
Yeah.
our first restaurant, you know, our first business working together, and like every week that we're hitting new numbers, it's our first time hitting those numbers. So everything's first time for us.
Yeah.
So as we're learning, we're trying to turn that into training, and grow the team. So everyone's learning, at pace. But it's not something like we came in with all this experience and we're like, from the get go, this is how it looks. Cause it's like, I'll let you know at the end of the week.
But that's so much fun building a training manual. Like, a lot of businesses never
love it. It's so fun. Just
but it's like
it's great.
It's fun when you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
But so many businesses never get to that point. They're like, I've never got there. I gave up before that happened.
Yeah.
That's why I started this restaurant.
Yeah. What's it been like working as like three friends together? Like, has that been
good?
Easy?
We're all very different and we all bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
So like before Adam joined us, Adam was like the missing link to the trifecta, because he has the kitchen experience and like I have the construction, artistic, creative side, and Cole's the
more academic and analytical side. Yeah,
he can read and write.
Barely. I mean,
I can use Excel.
Yeah, so like we all bring something very different to the table, and like the nice thing about having Adam and I were talking about this after golfing earlier, but the nice
41
thing about
handicap.
Sheesh, you're not supposed to expose that.
Whoa. It was windy.
It was 45 mile an hour winds.
4.1 handicap? Is that what he said?
4.1.
4.1.
Basically
Yeah.
scratch.
Pretty good.
After we were done scratch golfing her.
That's for 2 rounds of 18.
Yes. It's
Anyways.
41 mile an hour winds, to be clear.
Yeah, it was rough. But
Yeesh.
any Hoosers. Yeah, like the nice thing, I don't even remember what the hell I was talking
You're
about.
talking about us
How it's working
as a
together.
team, us three. All having
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
So you don't like butt heads and like anything major. I mean, we all disagree, right? But
Oh no, that's what I was gonna say. We all have very different opinions on how everything should be handled. Not everything, but certain things, where I'm like, this is the greatest idea I've ever had. And these guys are like, you're an idiot. We're not doing this. And so it's like we have that echo chamber where we can figure out problems, and then we all respect each other enough to listen.
yeah,
And we know we all have the same goal in mind. So
I think
It works well.
the respect level that we all have for each other is like, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere where anyone respected me as much as you guys do, and it's fucking awesome.
Are you guys
And that's
good at
truthful.
separating friendship from business, like when it's time?
Oh, these guys aren't my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
No,
Yeah,
but
it's
I mean, these are guys that I only knew in a professional like mind state, and it's grown to a friendship, which is even better. Because I've been in, we're not opening that can of worms right now.
yeah,
Episode 2.
yeah, the aftercast. But no, it's been good. And like Cole and I, we started working together 10 years ago in the Army. Like we were team leader buddies, so we deployed together. We ran a squad together. So like we have worked together a long time
In much
ago.
harder conditions than
A lot,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Getting shot at puts it in perspective a little bit. It's like, it's
well,
just
people-
burgers, guys.
Yeah, people that
It's
are
not
like,
stressed
well,
too
isn't it hard, like stressful for you guys starting this business? And I'm like, not that stressful.
Yeah, making food at the end of the
Like,
day, like making
it's-
food for people is fun. Like it really is. Like when you talk about like going to work, it's like you wake up with a purpose every day. It's like, dude, I'm making people happy. I'm making good food. They're enjoying themselves. They're talking about it when they're done. Sure, you can't make everyone happy, but if I can make 95% of the people happy, 90%, like my job's pretty cool at the end of the day.
That's what the best thing in my eyes was the best thing about having a food truck was having that giant window that you could watch someone eating your food, and they're
Oh,
just
it's the
taking a bite
best.
into your sandwich.
It's
and
the
They
best.
close their eyes and they start dancing. It's like, I
Yeah.
did that.
It's cliche, but it's so true. Like food brings people together. People forget about their differences. They forget about whatever they're disagreeing on, whatever shit's going on in the world. You kind of forget it in that moment when you got a fucking big old juicy burger in front of you and you're wolfing that thing down. You forget that, this person voted this way or this person said this. It's like, dude, we're all here for the same reason, to have a good time and eat some food. And it's really cool. Really
Yep.
cool.
Burgers over politics.
Every time. Food over politics every time.
But I'd also like to point that question back at you. Like, what do you got going on? How can people find you? Like, anything you want to plug?
Sure. So, I mean, you could find us on Instagram. It's definitely the main platform. All of our handles are the same, at LionCubs Cookies. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LionCubsCookies.com. You can find us in Grandview on Grandview Avenue, 1261 Grandview Avenue. You can find us on High Street, 7105 North High Street, Suite 120,
Where's
Worthington, Ohio,
Okay, yeah.
just south of the 270-23 interchange. So there's that Kroger across the street. We're in a new development across the street.
Like by Starbucks and all that. Wait,
Yeah,
where
it's
the
very
Buca-
close to
where the Buca
Starbucks.
just shut down.
Caddy corner from that.
Okay.
Yep, we're right there. It's a new development. And then what are we working on? So like the question people ask all the time is, when is location number 3? And my answer is the same every time, and it's, we're not even thinking about store number 3. I mean, it's in the back of my mind, don't get me wrong, but we're trying right now. We're focused on being the best version of ourselves. And, we were very much ready for store number 2. There was no huge learning curves. Like, operations scaled very well. And right now it's like, okay, before we open up store number 3, especially now that the space is very crowded. I mentioned earlier, when we got started, there was really nothing like this. Now, like when we got started, there was one Insomnia. Now there's 15 or 16 cookie only concepts in Columbus. Here we are just 5 or 6 years later. So at that point, you have to look at yourself and say, okay, how do we differentiate? How do we be different from other people, but still be true to ourselves? And so that's what we're focusing on. And, the 3 things that we're focusing on is it's product innovation. So I let you guys try those brookies. Like, those haven't been released yet, as you know.
So we're great.
Yeah, they're good. So we're releasing those
You want me to
420.
put a picture of them on the podcast?
Yeah, do it. They're
We'll be
really
right up here.
freaking good. Imagine that with a cold bowl of ice cream with a warm brookie.
And a cheeseburger beforehand.
Dude, that's the cheat code right there. That's the cheat code for sure. But so it's product innovation, and we've started, and it's not like other places will start making different desserts. Like, oh, we're going to start making, pies and muffins and breads, and that's cool. Like that's cool. You can innovate in that way, making new things. But we're going to stay true to being a cookie company, and we ask ourselves, what's the unique things we can do with cookie dough? So the brookie, for example. We introduced this new product called the cinnamon roll. It looks like a cinnamon roll. It's made like a cinnamon roll. Tastes like a cinnamon roll. Like, you roll out the dough, you do all that stuff, but it's made with cookie dough instead. That has changed Sunday. We do that on Sundays only. Sunday used to be one of our slowest days of the week. Now it's our second busiest day of the week, just from introducing that product. It's very innovative. So we got new products coming in line. So product innovation, make new friends every day is part 2. And that's just continuing to get out in the community. I actually have someone who's in overhead position. Their job is to literally drive around all week long. And our GMs do the same thing, dropping off cookies, free cookies at places. Make new friends every day, get out in the community, get to know people. We're a community brand. I talked about that earlier. And then step 3 is quality control. So I think our quality control is good, but it can be great. So we're implementing systems where we can actively monitor every single day, every single week, and score ourselves on how we're doing with quality. And I've got an incentive for our team. When we're hitting our quality numbers, we're going to trigger a bonus for everyone. And we've done profit sharing since the beginning. Been a very, very good decision. And so if we do really good on our quality, then they get more profit sharing. So another piece of our brand is like shared success and respect has been a huge part of our brand, especially, both those pieces, but the shared success piece is when I do well, when the business does well, I want all of you to do well.
Right.
So, when we do really well every quarter, you might get hundreds of dollars on your paycheck just from profit sharing. And
That would go a long way.
For sure. So that's the 3 things. We can get people in the door by innovating. We can get people in the door by making new friends every day, and we can keep them coming back. That retention piece, if we're controlling our quality and they're getting that similar experience every time. Yeah. So those 3 pieces, we think if we're doing those 3 things, we can be the best version of ourselves. And then once we figure out, as we're figuring out right now, what is the best version of LionCubs Cookies, then I think we're going to open up store number 3. So, you hear like you can grow too fast. And I think if you grow too fast before you figure out who you are,
You lose yourself. You're no one.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing. We're figuring out, now that we're a little bit more of a mature brand, we've been around for 5 years now. When you're the new toy on the shelf, everything's it's different. It's a different ball game. But now that we've been around for a while, and the space is now much more competitive than it once was, we have to be the best version of ourselves before we open up that 3rd location.
Oh, yes.
And thank God we've made some good decisions along the way that have given us that opportunity to pause on growth. Like, we're still growing, but we're growing internally.
Right. Not visually growing.
Yeah, and we're still keeping it very stimulating for the people that are working for us. It's exciting when you're opening up new locations, but it's just as exciting, especially when you're innovating and bringing new products to market. That really excites the team and excites customers. So that's the thing we're working on. And I think, we've been working on that for probably 3 or 4 months now. That was our goal to start in 2025. We're going to work on these 3 things and these 3 things only. And after we do those things, we're going to reevaluate at the end of the year and say, okay, is it now time to open up a 3rd location? So, yeah, that's what we're working on.
Yeah, pretty much the same for us.
Right on.
No. Yeah, looking at our 3rd location.
Hey, it'll be there before you know it, dude.
Yeah, time's flying. But Brad, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
cheers to end it.
Get our outro music going.
Thank you for having
Cheers,
me on.
guys.
I enjoyed our conversation.
Smash you later.